I sat in my car staring at the pregnancy test in my trembling hands. Two bright pink lines stared back at me, confirming what I had suspected for the past week. After 2 years together and 6 months of living with Marcus, this was the moment I had been dreaming about. My heart raced with a mixture of pure joy and nervous excitement. I could already picture his face when I told him the news. We had talked about having children before, and he always seemed enthusiastic about starting a family together. I decided to surprise him by coming home early from work. I had no idea that this decision would change everything. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Trust me, you will want to hear how this pregnancy announcement turned into the biggest plot twist of my life. Marcus and I met at the financial firm where we both worked. He was in marketing, charming everyone with his quick wit and infectious smile, while I worked as a financial analyst in the same building. From our first coffee date, he had this incredible ability to make me feel like the most important person in the room. He would listen intently to my stories, laugh at my jokes, and always knew exactly what to say to brighten my day. When he suggested moving in together 6 months ago, I was over the moon. I loved the idea of waking up next to him every morning and building a life together. Looking back now, I should have paid more attention to certain details. I was the one who paid the entire rent for our 2-bedroom apartment downtown. I covered all the utilities, groceries, and most of our entertainment expenses. Marcus would occasionally contribute with small amounts, but he always had some excuse about why money was tight. His charm made these red flags easy to overlook. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I had been feeling nauseous for about a week, and my period was late. During my lunch break, I slipped into the restroom at work and took the test I had bought that morning. When those 2 pink lines appeared, my entire world shifted. The emotions hit me like a tidal wave. Shock, overwhelming joy, and a flutter of anxiety about our future all crashed together. I spent the rest of the day unable to concentrate on spreadsheets or client reports. I left work 3 hours early, something I never did. On my way home, I stopped at our favorite bakery and bought a box of vanilla cupcakes with pink and blue frosting. I imagined Marcus's face lighting up when he realized what the colors meant. My hands were shaking with anticipation as I drove through our neighborhood practicing different ways to break the news. As I approached our front door, I could hear Marcus's voice coming from our bedroom upstairs. At first, I assumed he was on a work call, or maybe catching up with one of his college friends. I quietly unlocked the door, setting the cupcake box on the kitchen counter. The volume of his voice seemed unusually animated, almost giddy. As I climbed the stairs, I caught fragments of his conversation that made my stomach drop. "Emma, you know I have always been crazy about you," I heard him say with a laugh. Emma was his ex-girlfriend from college, the one he claimed he had not spoken to in over a year. I pressed myself against the hallway wall just outside our bedroom door, my heart hammering against my ribs. What I heard next shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship. "She is so stupid and desperate she believes everything I tell her." Marcus said, his voice dripping with cruel amusement. "I am just using her for her money until you take me back. She is pathetic and actually thinks we are going to get married someday." The sound of Emma's laughter echoing through his phone speaker made my blood run cold. They were both laughing at me, at my love, at my trust. I stood frozen in that hallway for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 30 seconds. Every instinct screamed at me to burst through that door and confront him immediately. Instead, I forced myself to take 3 deep breaths and think strategically. I slowly backed away from the bedroom door and tiptoed back downstairs. My mind was racing, but I knew I had to stay calm and play this smart. I walked back outside and sat in my car for 5 minutes, composing myself. I practiced my facial expressions in the rearview mirror, making sure I could pull off the performance of a lifetime. When I felt ready, I grabbed the cupcakes and my purse, then walked back to the front door. I made sure to close it loudly enough for Marcus to hear from upstairs. "Honey, I am home early," I called out in the most cheerful voice I could muster. I heard scrambling sounds from upstairs, followed by Marcus's voice abruptly ending his call. By the time he appeared at the top of the stairs, he had managed to compose himself, though I could see the slight panic in his eyes. "Baby, you are home early. Is everything okay?" he asked, jogging down the stairs to give me his usual welcome home kiss. I accepted the kiss with a bright smile, even though my skin crawled at his touch. "Everything is more than okay," I said, holding up the cupcake box with exaggerated excitement. "I have the most amazing news to share with you." I watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of guilt or discomfort. He maintained his interested expression perfectly, but I could see the tension in his jaw. I led him to the couch and dramatically presented the pregnancy test. "Marcus, we are going to be parents," I announced, watching his reaction with the intensity of a detective. His surprise seemed genuine for a split second before his practiced charm kicked in. "Oh my God, Catherine, this is incredible," he exclaimed, pulling me into an embrace that felt hollow and mechanical. "I cannot believe it. We are really going to have a baby." His words were right, but something in his tone felt off, like an actor who had not quite memorized his lines. Over the next hour, we sat together planning our future family. I suggested baby names, and he played along enthusiastically. When I brought up the possibility of getting married before the baby arrived, I noticed how he deflected the conversation toward other topics. Every response he gave felt calculated, lacking the genuine emotion I would have expected from the man I thought loved me. The following 2 weeks were the most challenging acting performance of my life. I continued to be the loving, excited girlfriend while secretly documenting every suspicious behavior. Marcus became increasingly distant and distracted. He would step outside to take phone calls, claiming they were work-related. He started staying late at the office more frequently, and when he was home, he seemed physically present but emotionally elsewhere. I began paying closer attention to our finances and discovered he had been withdrawing cash from our joint account regularly. Small amounts that I had not noticed before, but when added up over several months, totaled nearly $3,000. I started changing passwords on my personal accounts and quietly moving money to a separate savings account he did not know about. That weekend, I contacted my friend Sarah, who worked as a family lawyer. Without revealing too many details, I asked her about tenant rights and financial protection in relationships. She provided me with valuable information about how to protect myself legally and financially. I also reached out to my landlord to confirm that the lease was solely in my name, which gave me significant peace of mind. My detective work intensified. I started leaving the house at my usual time, but parking around the corner to see if Marcus left shortly after me. Twice that week, I saw him leave just 20 minutes after I was supposed to be at work. I followed him once and watched him meet Emma at a coffee shop downtown. They looked intimate and comfortable together, nothing like two people who had supposedly not spoken in a year. The most damning evidence came the following Friday afternoon. I had taken a half-day off work, but told Marcus I would be staying late for a client meeting. I parked down the street from our house and waited. Sure enough, at 2:30 in the afternoon, I heard his voice carrying through our open bedroom window. "Emma, I promise you, once this baby situation is handled, we can finally be together," he was saying. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. "I will get child support money from her, and then we can start our real life together. She makes good money, so we will be set financially." Emma's response was equally devastating. "I just cannot believe she has not figured it out yet. You have been so obvious about not wanting to marry her. How long do you think you can keep this charade going?" "Not much longer," Marcus replied with a laugh. "But I need to time this right. I cannot just disappear while she is pregnant. I need to make it look like this is her fault somehow, so I can still get visitation rights and financial support." That was the moment I knew I had heard enough. These two people were planning to manipulate me and my unborn child for financial gain. They saw me as nothing more than a paycheck and a means to their happiness. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever experienced, but it also ignited a fire of determination within me. I spent the weekend researching my options and planning my response. I consulted with Sarah again this time, providing full details about the situation. She assured me that I had the legal right to remove Marcus from the apartment since the lease was in my name only. She also explained how to protect my financial assets and what documentation I should gather for potential custody proceedings. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Instead of staying home, I went to the bank and opened a new checking account, transferring most of our joint savings into it. I also installed a small recording device in our bedroom, hoping to capture more evidence of Marcus and Emma's conversations. By that evening, I had gathered enough evidence to fill a folder. The final piece fell into place that Wednesday afternoon. I had left work early again and was listening through the window when Marcus made the most damaging statement yet. "Emma, I have it all figured out. After the baby is born, I will gradually become more distant and difficult to live with. Eventually, Catherine will get fed up and ask me to leave. That way, it looks like the relationship failed naturally, and I can claim she pushed me away. I will get partial custody and child support, and we can use that money to start our life together." The callousness of his plan took my breath away. He was not just planning to leave me, he was planning to psychologically manipulate me into thinking our relationship failure was my fault. He wanted to extract as much financial benefit as possible while making me feel responsible for our family falling apart. That night, I finalized my plan. I would confront Marcus with the evidence in a way that left no room for denial or manipulation. I wanted him to understand that his carefully constructed scheme had completely backfired. Friday morning arrived with perfect timing. I had taken the entire day off work, but left the house at my normal time, telling Marcus I had back-to-back meetings all day. Instead, I spent the morning at Sarah's office reviewing my legal options one final time. She assured me that I had grounds for a restraining order if Marcus became aggressive, and she helped me prepare all the necessary paperwork to protect my assets. At 11 in the morning, I called Marcus from Sarah's office. "Honey, my meetings got canceled and I'm feeling much better today. Why do not you come home for lunch? I have a special surprise planned for us." I could hear the excitement in his voice as he agreed to meet me at home in an hour. I arrived at the house 30 minutes before Marcus, giving me time to set up my confrontation. I connected my phone to our living room television and queued up the recordings I'd captured over the past week. I also laid out printed bank statements showing his unauthorized withdrawals and photos I had taken of him meeting Emma. When Marcus walked through the door, I was sitting calmly on our couch with a warm smile on my face. "Welcome home, sweetheart. I have something really important to show you." "What kind of surprise?" he asked, settling down next to me with that same charming grin that had once made my heart flutter. Without saying a word, I pressed play on the first recording. His own voice filled the room. "She is so stupid and desperate she believes everything I tell her." I watched as the color drained from his face. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Catherine, I can explain. This is not what it sounds like," he began, but I held up my hand to stop him. "Please let me finish the presentation," I said calmly, playing the second recording, where he detailed his plan to manipulate me after the baby was born. Then I showed him the bank statements and the photos of him with Emma. By the time I had presented all the evidence, Marcus looked completely defeated. He tried several different explanations, each one more desperate than the last. He claimed Emma had been blackmailing him. He said he was planning to cut ties with her after the baby was born. He insisted that he really did love me and wanted to marry me. I listened to each excuse without interrupting, maintaining the same calm demeanor throughout. When he finally finished his desperate attempts at damage control, I stood up from the couch and walked to our front door. "Marcus, I want you to pack your essential belongings and leave within the next hour. I will pack the rest of your things and leave them outside this weekend. Please do not contact me unless it involves our child, and any communication about the baby will go through my lawyer." I handed him Sarah's business card. The reality of the situation seemed to hit him all at once. He went from defensive anger to desperate pleading within seconds. "Catherine, please, you cannot do this. I made a mistake, but I love you. Emma does not mean anything to me. I will cut all contact with her right now. We can work through this together." I watched him beg from my position by the open door, feeling absolutely nothing. The man I had loved for 2 years was revealed to be a complete stranger. "Your hour starts now," I said simply. Marcus spent the next 60 minutes alternating between packing his belongings and trying to convince me to change my mind. He promised to go to counseling to get a better job to prove his commitment to our relationship. Each promise felt more hollow than the last. When his hour was up, I watched him walk out of our house carrying 2 suitcases and a backpack. He turned back one final time, tears streaming down his face, and said, "Catherine, please do not give up on us. I will prove to you that I can change." I closed the door without responding. The first few days after Marcus left were surreal. Our apartment felt enormous and quiet, but also peaceful in a way it had not felt in months. I spent the weekend packing up his remaining belongings, and I felt lighter with each item I removed. Sarah helped me change all the locks and set up a security system just in case Marcus decided to escalate the situation. Word traveled quickly through our social circle. Marcus tried to control the narrative by telling mutual friends that I had kicked him out without warning over a minor disagreement. However, several people had witnessed his behavior over the past few months and were not surprised by the breakup. Our co-workers at the financial firm were particularly supportive, as many of them had noticed Marcus's increasingly erratic behavior. Emma, it turned out, was not as committed to Marcus as he had believed. When he showed up at her apartment that first weekend, expecting comfort and support, she made it clear that their relationship had been purely about the excitement of sneaking around. She had no interest in a real relationship with him, especially now that he had no stable income or housing. Marcus tried to find temporary housing with friends, but his charm had worn thin with most people. He had borrowed money from several mutual acquaintances over the past year and had not repaid most of those debts. Within a week, he was staying in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, rapidly burning through what little savings he had accumulated. His work performance suffered dramatically. Without the financial stability I'd provided, he struggled to maintain his appearance and professional demeanor. His supervisor noticed his declining performance and called him in for several disciplinary meetings. Marcus had always been more style than substance at work, relying on charm rather than actual skills. By the end of the first week, Marcus had started calling me from different phone numbers since I had blocked his original number. I answered once thinking it might be work-related, but he immediately launched into another round of desperate apologies and promises. I hung up without engaging and added the new number to my blocked list. The second week brought increasingly erratic behavior. Marcus started showing up at my workplace, waiting by my car or in the lobby. Security escorted him out twice, and my supervisor suggested I file for a restraining order if the harassment continued. His desperation was becoming more apparent to everyone who encountered him. I learned from mutual friends that Emma had completely cut contact with Marcus after he showed up at her job, causing a scene and embarrassing her in front of her coworkers. She apparently told several people that Marcus was completely delusional if he thought she would support him through this situation. The breaking point came exactly 2 weeks after I had confronted Marcus. It was a Tuesday night around 2 a.m. when I was awakened by shouting outside my bedroom window. I looked out to see Marcus standing in my front yard in the pouring rain, screaming my name at the top of his lungs. "Catherine, please come outside. I know you can hear me," he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "I have lost everything. Emma will not take my calls. I cannot afford my motel room anymore. I need you. We belong together." He was completely soaked, kneeling in the muddy grass, looking up at my bedroom window, with his hands clasped together. The sight should have broken my heart, but instead I felt a strange sense of closure. This was the same man who had called me pathetic and desperate just 2 weeks earlier. Now he was the one begging in the rain. I called the police, who arrived within 10 minutes and escorted Marcus away from my property. The officer informed me that this incident, combined with his workplace harassment, was sufficient grounds for a restraining order. I filed the paperwork the next morning. The months that followed were challenging, but transformative. I threw myself into preparing for motherhood, reading every parenting book I could find and setting up the nursery exactly how I wanted it. My family and friends rallied around me with incredible support, helping me realize that I was stronger than I had ever imagined. I discovered an inner strength that I never knew existed. Taking care of myself and preparing for my child became my primary focus, and I found genuine happiness in that independence. The financial stress was manageable since I no longer had to support Marcus, and I was able to save money for the baby's future. When my daughter was born 6 months later, I looked into her perfect little face and felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude that she would grow up seeing her mother as a strong, independent woman who refused to accept less than she deserved. Gratitude that I had discovered Marcus's true nature before we had built an even more complicated life together. The most profound lesson I learned from this experience is that sometimes the most devastating betrayals lead us to our greatest strengths. Marcus's cruelty forced me to confront my own worth and refuse to settle for fake love. I learned that self-respect is more valuable than any relationship, and that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who sees you as nothing more than a convenience. Today, as I watch my daughter take her first steps in the same living room where I confronted Marcus, I know that every painful moment of that experience was worth it. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our greatest strength, and the most heartbreaking endings become the most beautiful beginnings. What would you have done if you overheard your partner saying such cruel things about you? Have you ever had to find the strength to walk away from someone you loved? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in the darkest moments, and please share this with someone who might need to hear that they deserve better than fake love. Remember, your worth is never determined by how someone else treats you. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you all the courage to choose yourself when life demands it.